Welcome back to Wake Up America. It's not our business, but when companies are losing business over their advertising practices, all eyes are on the why, as Bud Light and other woke companies are continuing to see their stock prices go down. For more, let's bring in former Anheuser-Busch executive and co-founder and president of Strive Asset Management, Anson Frericks, and the former president of Levi's and author of Levi's Unbuttoned, Jennifer Sey. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. So the hits just keep on coming for Anheuser-Busch following the Mulvaney Bud Light controversy. The brand has lost $27 billion in market value, and sales of the beer dropping 29.5% as the boycott continues. Anson, your reaction to this?
Yeah, unfortunately, the mission of this company is to create a future with more cheers. And one thing they haven't created over the last couple months is more cheers, as people on both the left and the right are upset about this campaign that they've had. One of the big reasons is that this has nothing to do with the historic purpose of Bud Light. Bud Light is supposed to be easy to drink, easy to enjoy. It was a brand that was enjoyed, again, by Democrats, Republicans equally. And there's something inauthentic when all of a sudden they move that mission and all of a sudden they get involved in very controversial political type issues, as it is this partnership with Mulvaney has shown. And so I think Anheuser-Busch moving forward, they're going to continue to see this decline in sales until they figure out who they're going to be accountable for. Are they going to be accountable to their shareholders, the people that want them to just focus on their customers, create great products and services? Or are they going to be accountable to these stakeholder groups, these groups that want them to get more involved with activists, get more involved with certain political organizations? And those folks are the BlackRock, State Streets, Vanguards of the world that own Anheuser-Busch. We can talk about more of that in a second.
Yeah, great point. I think it just goes down to knowing who your audience is when it comes to marketing and advertising. Jennifer, we're seeing a consistent increase in brands being involved in outspoken political, social issues. I just wonder what happens behind the scenes, at the marketing table when they're brainstorming and saying, yeah, this is a good idea, but they continue to see companies face backlash for getting involved in politics and social issues.
Well, I think you have to remember that it starts because it's an attempt to capitalize on Gen Z and millennial activism. It really is a money-making venture. They believe it's going to work. These brands are saying, if we assert this set of values that we know you're aligned with, we believe you'll buy more. But ultimately, they're creating a system, these executives, these CEOs, where their plunder and their raiding of the coffers in the form of, outsized executive comp is endorsed, and ultimately a moral code that lauds it. They want to be celebrated. They have very big egos. Greed is no longer good, so they want to be celebrated as altruists. We now see it's no longer working. So I think there's going to need to be a regrouping, because ultimately you have to remember, at the end of the day, greed and money are what drive them. So when taking these stances no longer works to drive the business, I can only imagine they're going to need to regroup and get back to focusing on great product that engages the consumer, inspiring marketing, and treating employees well. Normie capitalism at the end of the day.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. Anson, company after company, they seem to be making the same call. We just talked about it. So Target, obviously facing backlash calls to boycott them, as well as Kohl's and other businesses. And I just wonder, though, because with Target, as an example, they put all this LGBTQ plus merchandise out there. And the one thing that was extremely controversial was this swimsuit. So then they pulled back some of that. So it's almost like consumers say, well, what do you want? What is your belief if you're doing something and then you're pulling it back?
Yeah, it's interesting. Jennifer just mentioned something that I'd like to comment on first about you have to follow the money, about why are all these companies, Anheuser-Busch, Target, Kohl's, why are they all getting involved in very controversial political issues? Well, you take a look at who are the largest shareholders of these companies. It's BlackRock, State Street, Vanguard. These are three large asset management organizations that control $20 trillion worth of capital. And it's not their capital. This is the capital of everyday citizens, firefighters, police officers, and doctors that have their money via either pension funds or 401ks with these large asset managers. And these large asset managers, some of their biggest customers, like the state of California, the state of New York. In the state of California, you're having politicians there, Gavin Newsom, others, that are asking companies to do things like divest from fossil fuels and adopt ESG and DEI type ideology to manage money on the behalf of the state of California. Bill de Blasio did the exact same thing in New York when he has companies divest from certain fossil fuels, and then also is adopting firm-wide mandates to push these ideologies onto companies, which ends up with executive compensation tied to ESG and DEI measures. And that's sort of why all these companies now get involved in these issues. But all of a sudden, you're seeing that it's not necessarily working from a shareholder standpoint. A lot of shareholders saying this might not be good for long-term value. And we're seeing billions of dollars of market cap erased over the last couple of months.
Yeah, follow the money, right? Anson and Jennifer, we appreciate you being with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
And another hour of Wake Up America starts right now.